for travel. White.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone. Hello, people on Zoom.
Oh, we have to,
And we also know that Sofia is traveling. But thanks to everyone who's here, especially our members of the community. We have a really packed agenda, so we're gonna jump right in.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
You can probably scan it from here.
If you haven't, thank you for that. If you haven't done your attendance, please do it. I am Jami Floyd, co-chair of the committee.
I am Elizabeth Caputo. Maybe we'll go around, just because we do have one person who has not been to a committee board 7 meeting before, and introduce ourselves, just name who else here, starting with Andrew.
Andrew Rigie.
One.
Hello.
Ken Coughlin.
Howard Yaruss.
Andrew,
Andrew.
Alice,
Alex Bell.
and
Justin Chan.
online we have
Just the record.
Doug, are you with us yet?
Dougie.
Doug, are you with us?
500 on red, Doug.
All right, well, we have a member who is joining us also virtually. We have a packed agenda, as you know. We tried to put some timestamps on agenda items. We're gonna see how that helps us move it along, keep it going, keep the flow, stick to our time commitment of leaving by 8:30, if not sooner. First, anyone want to move the agenda?
Seconded.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Look how quickly we're moving.
So we have one change to the agenda tonight.
Here's Doug.
There's Doug Kleiman.
Hello.
Hey, Sharon. Yeah.
So we have
Thank you,
one,
Sharon.
just agenda item reshuffling, which is the item on the criminal summonses for cyclists has been moved up on the agenda after our external presenter, who is the Jameson introduced.
And Ken has agreed to that, who is making that proposal. So that will come up next, but first, we do have a proposed resolution coming after what we expect to be a very interesting presentation from Sage Hamilton-Hazarika from you're the corridor coordinator, right?
I am the corridor coordinator.
I love it. Great title. And it's the
Thanks.
Underground Railroad Consortium of New York State. And you want to talk with us about the Scenic Byway, correct?
Absolutely.
So we're excited to hear from you. Let's see what you got.
All right, I'm just starting my timer. So my name is,
We like that.
yeah, Sage
And here we
Hamilton.
thought the Underground Railroad was the subway.
Well, interestingly enough, we'll start with a fun fact. Some freedom seekers and Underground Railroad conductors did in fact use the train. Harriet Tubman was one of those.
Yeah, I remember.
And the actual train tracks that are along the east side of the Hudson River are included in places that Harriet Tubman traveled with freedom seekers in New York State. That's a hook. So my name is Sage Hamilton-Hazarika. I work for the Underground Railroad Consortium of New York State. It's a 501c3. I work remotely out of Brooklyn, New York. I am a lifelong New Yorker, grew up in Flatbush, and I spent a number of years in this district attending Trinity. So I'm happy to be presenting to CB7. What we're doing in the Underground Railroad Consortium is we promote Underground Railroad history throughout a number of our partner sites. So these are museums, heritage sites, research organizations that are all working together to kind of share their knowledge and work to promote the Underground Railroad. And we have external partnerships with destination marketing organizations, so various county tourism offices, museums that exist, other cultural heritage institutions that are interested in promoting this history as well. And we have an active participation with the National Park Service Network to Freedom, which is the classification of Underground Railroad heritage sites that are vetted with research by the National Park Service. So taking the cue from existing Harriet Tubman scenic byways that exist in Maryland and Delaware was kind of what provided the inspiration for our proposed route. We received some grant funding in 2023 from the federal EDA. And that's what enabled us to start working with cultural heritage consultants to develop a corridor management plan that would give us the eligibility from New York State DOT to get the byway status. So I'll go into the proposed corridor. So a byway is a public road sharing intrinsic qualities. These qualities can be history-based, they can be scenic-based. This one in particular, honoring Harriet Tubman and the Journeys of Freedom Seekers, would be a history-based scenic byway. Even though scenic is in the word, that's just the designation by New York State. We would want to connect historic sites with recreation, opportunities, along our proposed corridor. The byway designation process, as I alluded to, it all starts at the ground level from a community organization that's interested in producing a scenic byway. Once we get some public and stakeholder outreach, New York State DOT determines our eligibility via the resolutions that we've acquired from the communities that exist along our proposed route, and then also our corridor management plan, which kind of outlines a broad 10-year look at how we intend to ensure that there is consistent stewardship of this scenic byway. There are other scenic byways in New York State. Not all of them have that same level of stewardship. So we want to make sure, and New York State DOT wants to make sure, that we have community buy-in and that we have the infrastructure, the organizational infrastructure to support such a massive byway. It would be 500 miles from New York City to Albany to Niagara Falls. So we're working with a few national heritage areas. We're working with, like I said before, the destination marketing organizations to ensure that if this gets designated, there is a solid crew of people who are sustaining it. Underground Railroad Consortium of New York State is a small 501c3, even though we cover a lot of ground. So we have a partnership and an agreement with the Niagara Falls National Heritage Area, who will work with us to kind of spread the word to some of the other national heritage areas, like the Maurice D. Hinchy Hudson River National Heritage Area and Greenway, and then also the Erie Canal National Heritage Corridor. Those are bigger organizations that are willing to work with us to help sustain our vision for the Harriet Tubman Byway. So as I said, in 2023, got the EDA grant. Last year and this year, we've been doing a lot of public meetings to generate support, and then also working with a group of stakeholders. We have a steering committee that's made up of participants from the 22 counties that our proposed route goes through, and we're doing the corridor management plan. Here's what our proposed route looks like. Those blue markers all represent historic sites. There's many more historic sites that our local partners are doing research on and would include. And I will also take this opportunity to showcase what the Harriet Tubman corridor, or excuse me, byway would look like in New York City. The purple line over here represents that same route. If I zoom out, you'll see it stretch across the state. But I'll just zoom back in over here. These, colored patches represent some of the other community boards that we've been working with. We've secured resolutions from 4 and 9 in Manhattan, and most recently 8 in the Bronx. 8 is the only community board in the Bronx. So now we're approaching the city council and also the borough president to secure resolution representing the entire counties of New York and the Bronx. But obviously we can't, in good faith, do New York County until we have all of the community boards. So thank you for giving us this opportunity to talk about how it may impact 7, and also outstanding is 12. But basically, this route would start in New York State at the Lincoln Tunnel. New Jersey DOT is working on their own version of a Harriet Tubman Byway, and we're in communication with them. They want to make sure that our segments connect, same as they're doing with Pennsylvania DOT, to make sure that their statewide segments connect. So the idea that a lot of these, DOTs and organizations that are supporting these byways, the shared vision is a Harriet Tubman and Underground Railroad history trail that will go across the country from Maryland, hopefully to the Canadian border, which is something that we have, which is a really exciting prospect. This is a more detailed look at some of the more specific state roads. Byways use all state roads, so their partnerships, or at least the signage that would be involved, is
Route
installed.
9, a lot of it.
A lot
I
of
see.
Route
Yeah,
9.
that makes sense.
And this is an example of our project vision, sharing the authentic stories of Harriet Tubman and freedom seekers in New York State. We want there to be an emphasis on education, preservation, and economic growth. We value the input of the tourism and hospitality industry. One of our supporters is the New York State Tourism Industry Association. They have signed on as a supporter. We work with the New York State Conference of NAACP chapters as well. That statewide conference has endorsed our plan and made it one of their own resolutions at the state level. And the project narrative revolves around Harriet Tubman, freedom seekers, the acts of self-emancipation, and also the themes of allyship that exist amongst other abolition historic sites throughout the state.
Can I ask a quick
Yes, of
question?
course.
You're getting community board approval. What kind of approvals do you need north of the city line?
North of the city line, we need county, village, and town approval. So any municipality that our proposed route intersects, we need to have a resolution from them in order to include them in our corridor management plan that we present to New York State DOT. That's
So-
one of their
So
requirements.
if a community board didn't support this, you're unable, so like, this is like a binding, I guess binding's not the right word, but it's a requirement to have approval of the community board or.
It's a requirement to talk about, participation in a geographic area. So if we say we want this route to inspire school trips, to historic sites that are within your jurisdiction, we wouldn't necessarily be able to include that in our corridor management plan to DOT if they didn't know that community had support from us. So it's a huge undertaking to be reaching out to all of those municipalities, but it is
You're
working.
talking 500 miles. That's an awful lot of approvals.
That's 170 municipalities.
Wow.
And we are,
Good luck.
between 70 and 80 approved so far. So we are making progress.
So how many are you as the coordinator personally reaching out to?
I'm reaching out to
More or less.
a handful, but I would say that I'm focused on the metropolitan, New York City metropolitan and the Hudson Valley regions, because I live around here, I speak the language, and I can travel up and down to some of these meetings. But
Assuming
yes,
you get all of this done, you will be issuing a guide, I'm guessing, listing all of the sites that are along this route. If there was a town that did not approve, you would just skip that section?
we would skip that section. Hopefully, we would continue to work with them
Right.
to see if we could get their approval so we can include that information.
Especially if they're left off a guide, which is good for tourism, I'm sure they
Yeah.
would. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I guess getting into a little bit of that economic impact, scenic byways are, and I'm looking, I'm over 10 and a half minutes, but scenic byways are a
Your
huge,
questions
yeah,
interrupt.
absolutely. No worries, no worries.
problem.
Scenic byways are a huge draw.
Yeah.
This would be a 500-mile scenic byway, but you can see that there are, I guess the other comparable distanced byways are the Natchez Trace. We have some economic impact numbers over here. They really add a lot when you factor in, especially how important hospitality and tourism is within New York State, especially, well, in New York City, but outside of it as well. Scenic byways are designed to draw people to places they wouldn't normally travel with methods that they might not normally use. So that's all something that we think about in terms of other aspects of tourism and hospitality that are able to be impacted by a scenic byway. We want to encourage local and alternative modes of transportation. Maybe a family's doing a road trip, they get out of their cars, they get on some bikes, they ride a segment of the Empire State Trail, or they're riding along the Erie Canal, they get in some kayaks or take a boat tour.
Or Amtrak, which
Or-
goes much of the route.
Exactly, and funnily enough, because we started out with talking about trains, all the major markets of New York State would be included in this byway. We're talking New York City, Albany, Rochester, Buffalo, Utica, Syracuse, and yeah.
Niagara Falls.
and Niagara Falls, and they all have significant Underground Railroad history because they were their own hubs of transportation. But Yeah, the byway could provide a lot of economic impact, and we want to make sure that we're working with destination marketing organizations to encourage small business owners to know how to interface with the tourism industry and with inbound and local tourists. But we also want to do it in a way that supports local historic organizations as well. So we're not just building this for one audience. To move along, we are hoping to get all of our approvals over the summer and have a draft to submit to New York DOT by the fall so that they could grant us the eligible status as a potential byway so that we could move forward in legislation. We hope to have approval from the New York State Assembly and the State Senate to make sure that we are a New York State byway. And then, who knows, as soon as January of next year, we could introduce legislation and host some celebrations. So the corridor management plan really quickly has these core principles, resource interpretation, stewardship, marketing, tourism, public participation. These are all, individual chapters that the New York State DOT is analyzing about our plan to make sure that we have the right kind of foundation for moving forward and supporting a byway. That would include marketing for websites, brochures, pamphlets with local buy-in. And we are also going to be hosting a corridor management plan feedback session for New York City, July 2nd. So that's details of that are still forthcoming, but it's an example of something that we're doing across the state at this stage of our preparation to make sure that we have more buy-in from community boards and other local organizations so they can feel represented and know what we're promoting and working on. This is, I have a lot more detailed looks at the specific aspects of what the corridor management plan entail, but I can include these slides wherever. Also, I can throw a couple links in the chat where people can download these documents. What I want to do very quickly is show you the proposed resolution language.
Let me stop.
Yeah,
you there,
absolutely.
Sage, to say that we have a resolution that we that I will put on the table momentarily. But before I do that, and it looks a bit, not entirely, I thought I shared it with you, but I don't think I did. Not entirely like your resolution. But generally, I guess, do you want to say anything more before you move on to the before I move on to the resolution?
Unless anyone had any specific questions.
Okay, let's go to questions. Some people had questions along the way. Go ahead, Jay.
I actually have two questions. Number one, if I wanted to get my car, or Ken wanted to get on his bicycle.
Mhm.
Or vice versa. Or vice versa.
Right,
which is
see that.
unlicensed, since I don't have a bicycle. So my original premise is correct.
Okay, gentlemen, time.
So could, if I wanted to drive or Ken wanted to bike the entire trail, we could do so. It's accessible to do that.
The trail is by definition a driving route. So yes, as far as biking, we would identify areas where bike paths, including the Empire State Trail, would traverse in parallel to the driving route. So scenic byways take into account the different ways people can cycle, train, plane, boat along, walk parts of the trail. So we would anticipate ways through our marketing of showcasing how people could drive or how people could cycle in the general area.
My second question is, have you started going upstate along the proposed route, approaching various communities, villages, towns, counties, whatever? And have you encountered any resistance?
Yes, and surprisingly, yes.
I'm not surprised. That's why I asked the question.
Well, I guess I should say that I was surprised, but in light of recent developments with federal agencies reinterpreting their priorities in funding and capacity, I feel like we've seen a lot of support from New York State municipalities that learn of this proposal. The most pushback that we've gotten is around the requirement of the resolutions to limit future permitting of billboards. So that's part of what keeps a scenic road scenic. So that's one of the requirements from the DOT for resolutions that we get, is that new permits for off-site advertising, which just means billboards, are not approved along a scenic road. And thankfully, in this case, the West Side Highway already has that as a
Yeah, it's not.
grandfathered parkway.
Yeah.
But that's most of where we've seen pushback, and they've been from just a handful of communities, not anywhere that would, I guess, impact the overall vision and a general route. And in that case, we would reroute around those communities that said, no, we don't want to support, or we kind of let there be more of a groundswell of support and participation, and people see, oh, well, maybe we'll be missing out, economically or otherwise by not participating in this plan.
Ken?
Yeah, following up on Jay's excellent question. Well, what do you mean that it's a driving route, and why can't it accommodate people who bike?
It will accommodate people who bike, but specifically a scenic byway is a series of New York State roads. So there might be some sections of the proposed byway route where it happens to be close to something like the New York or the Empire State Trail, or a route in central New York, for example, where you can drive our proposed route, or you can bike along the Erie Canal, one safer. So as far as assets, historic sites, recreation areas, hospitality locations, we're canvassing a 4-mile radius on either side of the proposed driving route to include in our corridor management plan. So there will be cycling areas included within that 4-mile radius.
And will the guide to the route tell cyclists that there's an alternative like the Erie Canal or the
Absolutely.
South County Trailway or something?
Definitely, we'll definitely be identifying cycling and walking trails and TEC areas, parks that people can experience within the vicinity of this byway.
Okay, and my other question is, you don't have any federal funding?
We got federal funding in order to start this project. It was a post-COVID tourism relief grant from the EDA, and it was administered by Empire State Development. But we're actively using those funds, and
Elon Musk can't afford that.
we can't get doged. I don't think. Knock on wood.
Or DEI.
Have you gotten the funds?
Yeah, the funds are
They're in your bank account?
we've been, yes, they're what we've been using over the past
That's
2
not
years.
To another account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then someone else's bank account.
And it was, thankfully it was an EDA partnership with Empire State Development and administered by New York State. So when we applied for the EDA grant, it was through ESD, I believe.
So our resolution, and I learned a little bit about scenic byways. They are by definition driveways, and then not driveways, sorry. They are for cars, and this 544-mile Harriet Tubman corridor is working around what exists to bring tourism and education, and also cyclists and people like me who like to walk, hikers. But it's a long walk, and so you might combine your cycling and your walking on the corridor. And so we wrote a rather broad, supportive resolution to join 22 counties that have already, have I got the number right?
22 counties that are, that will be included in
Mhm.
this.
Right?
Yeah.
And we put that number into the resolution as well as the 57 New York State municipalities and counties that have already passed resolutions supporting the corridor. We don't have some of the issues that have been mentioned, like a dearth of tourism, or I guess now maybe we could use it, some influx of revenue, but really it's an effort to support, a little bit of a good feeling effort, rather than some of the other kinds of things we address.
And
So that's.
perhaps we could add something that with our support, we hope when this is finalized, that there will be informational pamphlets that can be given out to train riders, bus riders, bike organizations, and everybody who might have access to this route.
Absolutely, I like it.
Is there anyone online with that as well?
Doug, or any public member who might want to participate or ask a question?
Barbara Adler, and
Could I ask a question, please?
Thank you for coming.
Okay,
Go right ahead.
you can hear me? Great.
the audio cut out at the office. Yeah.
Okay. I was wondering if your route was going to show stops along the Underground Railroad as well, because I'm asking my question because many years ago, I owned a house. It was a 3-story federal style house built in 1838, and on the property there was a stone cottage. It's in West Nyack, New York, a stone cottage that was a stop on the Underground Railroad. And it was beautiful, tiny, but really beautiful. I did research on it in the local library, so I know that it certainly was reputed and published that it was a stop on. Anyway, I wondered if you knew of that address and if you wanted it and maybe include it.
I would certainly certainly take that address. So the 4 miles that I talked about on either side of the proposed route, that includes the communities on the west side of the Hudson River as well. This
Right.
orange shading represents those municipalities that, even though we're not seeking resolutions from them.
It's blocked on the screen
Oh,
right now.
excuse me.
Sorry, oh, now we see all Barbara, sorry.
Let's see. I'll am I still sharing? I'm still sharing.
Yeah, you're sure.
You are, but
There's your thing
I
on the
just wanted to see
box.
Barbara so badly that I'm now,
Did you do that, Jake?
I did it.
Are you studying dermatology?
In the meantime, though, there are counties that will be covered by the corridor management plan where we include the historic sites, we include recreation areas, we include, tourism destinations, but we're not asking for a resolution from them. So Nyack is one of those communities. I
Okay.
hope that it goes all the way out to West Nyack, because we have been working with some great
There's the
organizations
map, right.
in the Nyack area, and highlighting some of their historic sites as well. But here we go. I'm zooming in on, it's just across the way.
Too far north
Too
now.
far north. Right.
Can
I'm
you
looking
see
for
it, Barbara?
Terrytown. There we go. There's our friend, the bridge. So
Yeah, there's that.
these communities would still be included in our corridor management plan, and historic sites like the one that you mentioned, hopefully with the support of local Underground Railroad historians in the area, would be able to work with us to include sites like that. Now obviously when you're dealing with Underground Railroad history, there's nuance, and we want to make sure that there is valid research around it. And then also, if it's like a private residence versus a public museum with funding, there are different ways of approaching those sites. But those are things that we think about regularly in our own organization, the Underground Railroad Consortium, and how do we make certain sites accessible, but then also, respect privacy of people that happen to be living in historic houses. But to answer your question, that is something that could be written about in our corridor management plan. I would be happy to take that address and follow up with you Barbara, on that property.
You
Or
know,
reach out to her.
I'm not able to put the address into the Q&A because I don't have I'm not here as a member. I just,
Barbara,
Yeah.
if you'll send me the address, I can link you up with Sage and we can get that information shared. Thank you so much. We are very much over time. As I say in my, one of my other lives, we'll have to leave it there. So let's, I'm gonna call the question on my own motion.
The resolution.
On my own
Second.
resolution. Anybody want a second? Are you seconding?
Second, yeah.
All those in
All those in favor?
committee.
Anybody online?
Doug is, Doug.
Doug has a hand. Okay, and non-committee members?
oh, that's me.
Yes. I saw you vote there, Barbara.
And nobody abstaining or opposed either.
Anybody abstaining? No? And nobody for cause? Excellent. Thank you so much. And thank
Thank
you,
you.
Sage, very much for your presentation.
Yeah, thank you as
for your
well,
work.
everyone.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks.
And I'll get you that information from Barbara.
Okay, absolutely. Appreciate it. Thank you for your time, everyone, and best of luck with the
Yes,
rest of your
Thank you.
proceedings.
Thank you so
break.
much.
Yeah.
Just wanted to acknowledge, we have Colleen Chatterton from DOT on the line tonight as well, Colleen.
Hello, Colleen.
So I'm not sure if you were on when we mentioned that we're going to have a slight change in the agenda and present the criminal summonses resolution now. And then we'll go to you, I believe, next on the agenda.
That's fine. I just want to say how exciting Sage presentation was. That is fantastic.
Thank you. And thank you for what you do with DOT.
I think so too. It's fantastic.
Yeah, me too.
All right. Want to introduce the next one?
No, two.
Okay, this is a shared effort. Ken has a resolution that he wanted to put on the table, and the reason we're bringing it up is because we moved an item that was supposed to be this month on curb access to next month, given an item that has come up in the news, and many of you have seen about criminal summonses to cyclists. So, Jami, do you?
No. No, go ahead. We discussed it. You said you were going to,
We didn't just, I was going to introduce the PD part and Jami was going, but Ken, would you like to introduce the resolution? I wanted to just say briefly, we do have Detective Christopher Williams here, who is coming as a liaison. He is with the police department. We, in recognition of your need to have this resolution and wanting to advance it for this tonight's meeting, we wanted to try to get to the facts of what the actual initiative was that the PD has put forward and what Commissioner Tisch has advanced, wrote her op-ed about. So Jami and I began to explore this. We were able to get in touch with the police department, who has sent a liaison here to, as follow-up if there are questions after this resolution is discussed and voted or not voted on, depending on what you present, Ken, tonight and what we discuss as a committee. So just wanted to make sure those ground rules were clear. Again, we're very appreciative that the Commissioner's office sent Detective Williams tonight to be with us. We do have, once you present your resolution, Jami and I can read what the PD has sent to us, which is what we know about the initiative thus far. So we'll, I guess, over.
Okay, so the reason I brought this up is that it's creating a wildly different standard for punishment on our streets. And cyclists and e-bike riders are much less likely, as the resolution states, to cause injury to pedestrians on the street compared to drivers. And previously, drivers and cyclists were subject to simply getting a ticket, even though drivers operate vehicles that are, thousands of pounds, and cyclists are riding vehicles that are anywhere from 20 to 80 pounds. And we all know Newton's second law, which is force equals mass times acceleration. And so it's no surprise that, given the laws of physics, that in the first 3 months of this year, one pedestrian was injured by an e-bike, according to the NYPD, and almost 2,300 pedestrians were injured by motor vehicles. And yet we have this different standard now, all of a sudden, where cyclists have to go to court rather than get a ticket, which they can contest online and pay online if they decide they want to pay it. Now they have to go to court, spend a half day a day in court. There was just a report. A reporter went to court to find out how things are going. The first wave of cyclists came into the court, and the judge issued stern reprimands to the cyclists and gave them orders on how they should comport themselves on the street. Very few drivers were given this, even though they were in for speeding, running red lights and stuff. Only the cyclists got this. Most of the tickets were thrown out because they weren't properly filled out. The rest of the people got something called an ACD, adjournment and contemplation of dismissal, which I think means they don't even have to pay. But it's also particularly dangerous in this era when, if you're an immigrant, an undocumented immigrant, becoming on the radar of ICE, Immigration and Customs Enforcement, can result in a one-way ticket to El Salvador, or Libya, or wherever they're sending people now. So this is really, really dangerous for our immigrant workers, who we might remember 5 years ago, we called them essential workers. Well, now they're not so essential. Now they're getting swept up in criminal summonses and could be deported because of this. So as the resolution says, this is really unjust, and it sends entirely the wrong message about what the real danger is on our streets. And the real danger is from the people who are the drivers, who are still only getting tickets. That's the reason for the resolution.
Can we hear the,
Yeah, so what
the
I was
law,
just gonna
the
read,
proposed law?
okay, so this is what was sent to us by the police department, by the commissioner's office. I'm just gonna read it to you directly as it was written and
Thank
sent
you.
to us. And that's what we have. That's what we're basing this on tonight. For the community board, NYPD editorial on the issue. I think everyone has seen that editorial. It was circulated. Commissioner Tisch wrote an op-ed entitled "Reckless E-Bikers Are a Menace, How NYPD is Cracking Down." It was in the New York Post, I believe, about a week ago. There's a link to it, which we can share if anyone would like to read that before they opine or deliver comments. So here are the bullet points. The editorial outlines our real concerns and why we stood up this policy. It is a quick read. Some more context is below. Item 1, the B summons was designed for cars. Cars are licensed, and the recourse for failing to address your B summons is a suspended license. E-bikes are not licensed, making the B summons an unsuitable way to address e-bike offenses. Item 2, this is not a dragnet. Since the start of our enforcement efforts, we have issued 17% more summonses for cars and vehicle infractions than e-bikes. Subbullet, date from the New York Post editorial, 11,245 moving summonses for vehicles versus 654 for e-bikes over the same period. Next bullet point, the judicial system is handling these offenses with discretion. Yesterday, summons court started hearing these cases. Based on our observation, the vast majority of individuals are receiving an adjournment in contemplation of dismissal, ACD. What this means is that if the e-bike driver avoids further offenses in the next 6 months, the case will be dismissed and the driver will face no further repercussions. And the summons will not appear on their rap sheet. This is contrasted with traffic court, where a driver will face a $190 fine. And because the liaison is here, he's not going to be speaking. We didn't notice him coming as a speaker tonight. He is here to take back information from tonight and also anything that might need to follow up. So
Elizabeth, can I correct one thing you said? I believe the police department statement was,
I'm just saying this
no,
is what
you misquoted something. It's 17 times more violations, not 17% more, 17 times more.
7 times more. I'm sorry, you're correct. 17 times
that's all.
more.
That's all.
Thank you. Thank you. 17 times more.
One interesting clarification, I think, is like when I have gotten myself a B summons before on my bike, I think they asked for a license and I gave them the license. And so I think that like, if I didn't pay that, or maybe this question to you, if I didn't pay, if I got stopped on my bike for going through a red light, they said, give me your license, I give my license. If I don't pay that, is it the same as a car? Like then I get my license suspended and I get into repercussions?
That would be up to the judge, but generally, no. The penalty is not the same for a bike rider as it is a vehicle.
Because I felt like the loophole they're talking about is like, if you get stopped on the bike, they say, give me your license, and I could say, I don't have a license, and that's fine, right? That's the loophole, right? They could say, okay, what's your name and ID, give me some ID.
So the terminology, driver's license.
Can you sit there? I'm sorry.
Oh,
Yes,
sure.
yes,
She
yes.
did mention
Owl.
it.
I told her about the owl.
You did mention that.
And this is Detective Williams,
So-
for those who may not have heard him.
So this is just basic police terminology. So an identification card is something that provides your name, your address, your date of birth, and maybe an associated identification number. A driver's license, which can be revoked or suspended, is actually your privilege to drive a car. So there's a distinction between the two. So a biker could give a identification card,
Right.
and if they were in a summons, their privileges to drive cannot be revoked because
Doesn't matter.
they don't have any privilege to drive. They don't have a driver's license. It could be a passport, formal identification that you're given, government ID.
I think I understand. Okay.
May I add to that, and then correct me, Detective Funlaw? So I had a long conversation with somebody at Legal Aid who heads up I shouldn't actually say because they wanted to be here and can't, and I don't want to miss her. But I also practice criminal law, so I followed along pretty well. My understanding is that if you're driving a car, you get pulled over and either don't show up or have multiple violations and your license is suspended or revoked, and then you continue to drive, that becomes a crime. Because you are now driving with a suspended license, driving a motor vehicle, which is a deadly weapon, with a suspended or revoked license. And now you can be charged with a misdemeanor or maybe worse, right?
Correct.
If you're riding your bike, I mean, it could be dangerous, but the vehicle is, the motor vehicle is the dangerous weapon, as Ken often points out. So that is the critical difference here, even the legal aid lawyer said.
But is there a distinction in this proposed law between a regular bike and an e-bike?
It isn't a proposed law, it's a policy.
It's a policy.
It's a policy.
It's a policy.
The laws that define the violations, and these are violations, they're not misdemeanors or felonies or any level of crime. The laws are already on the books.
Correct.
E-bikes, cyclists are already subject to the existing traffic.
This is an enforcement.
So this is a policy
It's a policy.
It's an
of the
enforcement policy, right.
NYPD to enforce already existing
Exactly.
laws which were enacted, and the expectation is that people will comply with those laws. And if they don't, they're subject to a violation. And part of the problem is, whereas a vehicle has a license plate and drivers have driver's license, cyclists and e-bike riders don't.
And if I
So
could,
I think, the practice of asking for some official identification is a necessity to issue the violation.
I think
If I could clarify, where it says the B summons, a B summons is a vehicular traffic law violation. And that's why I said that summons wasn't designed for bikes.
Right.
It was designed for, what was described as a vehicle at that time.
Before we go to questions and responses, just wanted to make the committee know that when we agreed to host this conversation tonight, we did ask you about, there's a lot of information out there. There's a lot that we know and don't know. And you had wanted to bring this resolution forward at this stage within, a week or two of this being announced and this op-ed coming out and everything, rather than waiting. So that's why it's here tonight, but we don't have every answer to everything. We do have the PD here, but you had wanted to make sure that this resolution was heard immediately.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that that was, okay?
And if the reason for this is to protect pedestrians who are at danger from automobiles, e-bikes, regular bikes, scooters, everything. E-bikes and regular bikes are pretty much silent, whereas motor vehicles are not. Yes, they kill a lot more people, but you might not hear a racing e-bike or a regular bike coming at you. I've had near misses. I'm sure many people have had near misses. So we want to protect pedestrians. That's what this community board does all the time. That's why we're asking for daylighting at corners. We're asking for a lot of things. So we want pedestrians to be protected. If somebody, and I'm sure it's not intentional, but if somebody runs down a pedestrian, they have to be responsible in some way.
And well, I have a question.
Let's, can we?
I can't ask this, other people.
Well, I just want to go in order. Andrew hasn't spoken.
So, thanks. So if you're driving a car and you pulled over, you have an ID, you have a driver's license, and that's handled the way you have, and you have registration and everything. You're driving a car and you don't have a driver's license, you don't have registration, there's ways to deal with it. It seems like if you're on a bike, whether a regular pedal bike or an e-bike, you either have a driver's license, you have some form of ID that's not a driver's license, or you have nothing. So how under this policy is that being handled? If you have a license, like you were saying, could that impact your ability to drive a car? If you have just a ID, is it handled a different way? And if you have no ID at all, then what do you give the person to show up for their hearing?
So as it was shared, this is still in its preliminary stages.
Okay.
So what I can share is what's been made available is that what we do know is that in regards to driving a car, there are documents associated with vehicles that allow officers to summons and then in return allow the courts to adjudicate because everything works together. The driver has a license, the vehicle hopefully has a license plate and a registration. So when
a visible license.
Hopefully. Yeah. And when you then turn that information over to the judge, whatever the necessary ramifications are, whether it be a warrant or suspension or registration suspension or a violation on the insurance, all of that can take place because of the documentation is there on the vehicle.
Number of violations has something to do with it too, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. And now, can we say the same right now for an e-bike or an operator of an e-bike who's not required to have a license or registration? No.
We're saying it, so you, now in this policy, you get a criminal summons on a bike.
It's not, well, I guess. It's a
Well,
violation.
A
It's not a
violation.
crime.
Right. I guess your question, Andrew, I don't think it matters, but your question is, what if you pull over the guy and you say, give me your ID, and they say, I don't have an ID?
Yeah.
Yeah, what
So
do
I
you
think,
do?
I think you then ask for their name and you write down their name, right, which is
Right.
useless, Liz.
Yeah.
They can give you a fake name.
True.
I mean, my son,
Fake
And
ID.
if it's an ID, just a general ID with your name on it and some number versus like an official driver's license, are they handled in a different way or can there be different ramifications?
There also, again, what we're saying is that the V summons, which is currently what's being used.
Yeah.
It's not suitable for bikes or e-bikes.
May I just say one thing and then I turn the floor back to you since it is your resolution? My sense, and I didn't practice law in New York, I practiced in California where there are a lot of cars and a lot of bikes. My sense is that the B summons was passed for automobiles at a time long before we had a lot of e-bikes.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Before we had
Absolutely.
Oh, we had some. I was riding a scooter in law school 30 years ago.
That's a scooter.
Well, it's been.
Is that like a
Okay,
Vespa?
that's off the point, that's off the point. I think what's happened is NYPD is trying to catch up with an enforcement mechanism before the city council has had a chance to respond with legislation. That's just my one person's opinion. I'm not speaking as co-chair, I'm just speaking as a member. Ken?
Do you have, data on, how many cyclists, don't show up in traffic court when they get traffic tickets?
We are still working on collecting the data. If that's something you and the committee are interested in, I'll be able to
Well,
go
it
back to.
seems
the
like
office.
This whole thing is predicated on the allegation that cyclists aren't showing up.
So again,
No, can he answer?
he can answer, but if he doesn't have the answer, it's not because he hasn't, we
Okay,
brought this.
But it's sort of like, you know, they decided to do this criminal summons thing before they got the data. Before they found out there was a problem, they decided to.
Right,
try
and
to
we're being
quash it.
asked tonight to vote on a resolution without a lot of this information at your request.
Yeah.
So he may not have the information, and if
Yeah,
you
well,
decide to
but
continue,
you
then
understand what I'm pointing at?
I do. And
Thank
he's planning, he has been very, he
It's-
wouldn't be
it's
here
sort of
tonight if
like
he weren't going to be taking
Putting
this
the cart
back.
before the horse, right?
Well, one of the things we'd like to potentially come to tonight is a way where we can work with the PD to get this information so that we can properly vote
So
on it.
I have.
Yeah, so we have the right information.
What
Yes.
happens when, within 6 months, you get an ACD and you run another red light? What happens?
Specific to e-bikes, so that's a
Yeah.
question I have to take back to the office and get an answer based on the data and the reports that we have. So that way you can have factual information.
But you don't know, like, what if a driver runs a red light if they got an ACD? Or what if I shoplift and I get an ACD and then I shoplift again?
Who is it?
Sorry.
Dismissal doesn't occur.
So
What
just,
does that mean?
so I love that you're asking data questions, and based on the time constraints, in order for us to gather what we had today.
This is more of a legal. like,
Oh, absolutely.
policy question.
Right, so even with that, with our policy in regards to the e-bikes or the bikes, we did a lot of research today and we're still gathering. This was a last minute call for us, and we're still gathering that information, hoping to gather more today and bring it back if necessary.
And if somebody doesn't have any ID, aren't you, don't the police typically arrest the person?
Yeah, can they take them in?
They can, and summonses can also be issued in lieu of an arrest.
What,
If
how
they're-
is the summons different from a criminal summons?
A criminal summons and a summons are the same.
So if somebody doesn't have any ID, like a cyclist says, no, I don't have any ID, what would be the typical procedure?
There is a procedure in place. I will say that officers have discretion. A summons can be issued in lieu of an arrest, and there are also other ways of verifying someone's identification. For example, if they've been arrested in the past.
It also depends on.
I guess the officer could say, what is your name, what is your address, and take all that,
And
presuming
assume that it's.
that it's correct. And if they refuse to give it up,
You can arrest.
you can arrest.
And it's important to have ID on you, because what if you're injured? You have to be able to know who the person is and get in touch with, you know, loved ones or something, so you should carry ID.
Well, yes,
Tend to have,
This
Yeah.
board has passed 2 resolutions more than 2 years ago, calling for the registration.
Of e-bikes,
Of e-bikes.
yes.
That would solve a whole host of these problems.
of the bikes
Because then
themselves.
the owner of that bike, and in most cases, going to be the rider of that bike, is readily identifiable if
There
registration
would be a license
was
plate on the bike.
required. Licensing is another way of doing
But we
it.
don't even know that there's a problem with that, Jay.
All right,
Probably
okay.
doesn't know.
Ken, just to wrap up.
With
how-
cyclists, they're
Yeah, I just
not,
wanted to wrap up
not
this
responding to tickets.
Regardless of this policy, there's a rational basis for having e-bikes
No, that has
registered.
nothing to do with this discussion.
Well,
And your
it
one
would
question,
solve a lot of
Jay.
the problem.
There's no,
just to confirm, your first question about the ACDs is what happens after 6 months, or within 6 months if it happens again? I mean, that's a question that he'll take back. I mean, not to get too personal about this, but I have received an ACD for being in the park after hours at 1 AM. And I was, you know, it was made clear to me when I went to court that after 6 months, if I did not do that again, it would be
Right.
taken off my record, it would be expunged.
And that's
But the question
within
is
the
what happens-
discretion of the court.
what happens if you don't?
Right, exactly, so that's what he's
Are you
speaking
are you
about.
in like really?
Right,
And the second
But-
question, Detective, was if you can get any sense of the numbers of cyclists and e-bikers, all one category, who don't show up to court once they receive the summons.
Right.
So I don't think that's terribly relevant. If we can get the information.
And there are cases where the city has taken things that used to be criminal summonses and converted them to civil violations. And there is no evidence that it increases the number of people not responding to the tickets.
I just wanted to clarify the
And
question.
so, you know, that's
okay.
relevant information.
I just wanted to say, I think there's overwhelming reason not to treat cyclists more harshly when they go through a red light than someone careening through the red light in an SUV. I think it's just on its face crazy, for lack of a better term, especially when vehicles result in over 99% of injuries. So that's number one, but there's something much more compelling to me. And it follows our discussion of the Underground Railroad, where we talk about people who suffered incredible injustice. By giving someone a criminal penalty, we may be relegating them to a forever prison in El Salvador. And that's something we can do for people in our community to potentially save their neck. And for me, that's overrides any other consideration.
These are traffic violations.
They should not go to prison in El Salvador, and that's the possibility under our present regime. We have to
Not for
recognize
traffic
that.
violations.
Wait,
Yes,
That's just BS.
it is a
Yeah,
BS.
it's not.
Let
He's
Howard
make-
have the floor.
Did you
You
read the
have the floor.
resolution?
And this is the,
Ken,
yes.
let Howard have the floor. You both have
And
the
also,
floor.
we talk about people being documented. What kind of documents do people have to show citizenship? You know, I'm not gonna get into personal things, but I was in New York City foster care system, and my documents may not be as good as yours, for instance. I think it's the fact that these people potentially, I'm not saying they're all being whisked off to forever prisons in El Salvador or Libya. It's a possibility, and we have the potential to stop that, to potentially slow that down or throw a wrench into that potential system. And I just think morality dictates that we do something about it.
Where'd you get Libya from? I haven't heard that.
That's
You
the
didn't hear that?
It's
That's the
totally
latest.
irrelevant to this situation.
not
They're not asking for documentation of citizenship.
No, Jay.
All right,
It
That's
becomes
kind of
the public record
Yeah.
when you
Yes.
get a criminal summons.
Exactly.
It's
We have-
it's a violation.
Gentlemen,
And ICE
gentlemen,
can
gentlemen,
access-
don't make
This
me
is
count.
relevant.
I'm sorry, there are people online
Yeah,
who've
we'd
not
like to
yet
give
had a
Doug-
chance
but-
to speak, and
but
we've
Mr.
all
McKeon-
spoken many times. Doug,
Hi,
Doug,
I'm not a lawyer, but my understanding, and perhaps the lawyers in the room and the detective can make some corrections. So my understanding is that this is a violation. It is not a criminal offense. This is an existing law, which has now essentially been moved into a criminal court system so that people are accountable. And that my also understanding is that an ACD basically it's basically saying you're forgiven if you don't do it again. And if you do it again, then you're probably, I assume, going to get the original penalty that you didn't get for 6 months. So I think and again, I've been doing a lot of reading because I knew we were having this agenda item, and it seems that Commissioner Tisch is trying to make people accountable for their bad behavior. And yes, heavy motor vehicles, buses, trucks, cars absolutely cause more death and injury. But there is an overwhelming climate in this city, and where people are concerned. And you know what else kills is stress. And I think people are very worried walking through the streets. Elderly people are terrified. So I think this is an attempt to modify behavior. I did see Gail Brewer's statement on it, that she opposed it. I do certainly have mixed feelings about this. It seems that there is a potential for unintended consequences. But it seems like, what do we do if there is no way to modify anyone's behavior? I don't know the answer to that. Putting someone into jail is not, in my opinion. But if they are reckless and habitual, then maybe jail is appropriate, because they can cause bodily harm, injury, and death. So this is being discussed. I've read some chatter on the, that community council meetings are just a bunch of hacks that are talking, but I attend our local community council meetings, and it is a big topic. So I think people are trying to respond. I don't know that this solution that Commissioner Tisch has put forward is the right solution. Maybe it isn't, but maybe there's something else. I don't know, and I'm very happy to listen to other ideas.
There's someone from the public wanting to speak.
Yeah. Okay, and I also just want to acknowledge our chair, but Beverly Donahue is on the line as well. Who from the public is here?
Judy Paulson.
I just want to clarify something Doug said. If you get the summons and you go to court, you don't necessarily go to jail or prison. You might just get a fine or a license suspension. So let's just be clear.
But if you don't show back, I think the distinction is you don't show to respond to the summons.
I don't mean to correct you, Doug. I just want to be really clear, because we have the language that people are going to prison or to El Salvador or Libya, and that could happen depending on the administration in charge. But the way the system works, the criminal justice system works, this is a summons asking you to come to court to deal with the violation, the infraction you've been charged with. Maybe you didn't do it. And then when you get there, depending on that, you might have a fine. It might be thrown out. It might be ACD, etc. So it's just a summons to come to court, as opposed to getting a ticket that you pay the fine the way you normally do.
Since you're responding to something I said,
Sorry, this is a very.
isn't it that, excuse me, what my point is, that if you get a summons and you do not show, then perhaps there's a bench warrant. That's the distinction between the civil.
But not showing is another violation.
My point is, that's where I believe the arrest can come in. If you do not show up in court. I think that's the difference that Commissioner Tisch is trying. And I'm not saying it's the right thing. I'm just saying that effectively, I think that's what is happening. And correct me if I'm wrong.
I would want to put words in the commissioner's mouth. I don't quite think that's what her goal is.
One, just baseline, sorry, but so before this policy, you're riding an e-bike, you go through a red light, you do something, you just get a ticket.
Traffic violation.
Yeah, okay, and you pay a ticket, versus under this, you get a ticket when you have to appear at court. Okay, the second point is just a point, like, this is one of those other examples, I know this all came up really quickly, where we're talking about like the legal system, people getting sent to El Salvador, and everybody's kind of like, with our best intent, trying to offer ideas of what the legality of all of this is. It's incredibly difficult, and again, I don't want to be in a position to vote on something like this when like people are offering their like half confident ideas of what happens or doesn't happen that could jeopardize someone's life.
I just want to say can happen.
I understand. Well, I'm not denying that.
I am aware, this is the local legal system, you described it perfectly. All I'm saying is we cannot be ignorant of what's going on a national level, because that is I would argue extrajudicial.
And when you get a criminal summons, it's public information.
It's a traffic violation.
Okay, everyone,
whatever they want.
If we may, because we had agreed that this would be a 15-minute item for discussion tonight, which is not, Jay, let me finish, please.
Okay.
Okay, we'd like to have the member of the public speak since they have not spoken yet. Then I think we'll go around the table, Jamie, if you agree. And we would like to, I have a proposal for something that I think could help summarize what everyone is sort of coalescing around a little bit, that will help us get through this item tonight, without staying here and potentially. So I want to present that after we get our individual from the public, and if there are any emergency items from the board, people who have not spoken about them yet. Who from the public can we
Judy.
promote?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great, thank you for recognizing me. Regarding the potential for damage to people being hit by bikes, I have been menaced by a car exactly once in living in Manhattan for more than 30 years. I am now currently menaced by bikes almost every time I leave my apartment. A woman was killed just a few steps from my front door recently. The bike behavior needs to change, and there needs to be motivation for that. Allowing pedestrians to be menaced on a regular basis because the person doing the menacing might be sent to El Salvador does not protect New Yorkers, quite honestly. And as someone was said before, that's what our job is here. And the last thing I'll say is, in the absence of licensing and registration, which somebody else already kindly brought up, we still need to do something to change the behavior of these bike riders. The job of this organization, as I understand it, is to protect New Yorkers, not to fix international problems. And thank you for your time.
Thanks. Okay, so Jamie and I have talked, and one of the things we wanted to propose, given the complexities of this issue, given that the police department still has a lot of work to do on fact-finding, gathering information, given the urgency with which you guys want this addressed, was potentially to host a more public sort of conversation or forum, correct? In June, where we could actually have representatives from all sides here for a robust discussion before a resolution is put on the table and voted on.
It's already on the table.
Okay, before we decide to, before we vote it up or down tonight.
And our visitor could bring back some of the answers to the questions that were raised.
And have it be a much more robust conversation with more stakeholders, where there is more notice, where we have significant representation about this issue from the police department, from any other organizations who feel strongly about this, that are in support of what you're trying to accomplish. We recognize the urgency, which is why we moved mountains to get this put on this agenda and move an item that was very important to many people on this committee as well, and very urgent. And at their suggestion, we moved it, at our suggestion, we moved it to June for that, okay? So that's one item that we would just like to propose. It doesn't sound like, it doesn't sound like that's an option for you, and you would like for this to be put up for a vote tonight based on the resolution as you've presented it. So if that is the case, unless there are some final comments or questions for Ken, I think we will be ready to potentially call the question and vote on it.
I have a couple of comments.
Can I just ask?
Yeah, yeah.
There has to be something between letting someone go scot-free and potentially sending them off to a forever prison. There just has to be. I don't know what it is, and this is something I've said in almost every single meeting. We pay high taxes for a reason, because we have a lot of experts working for the city of New York. My spouse is one of them. They are the people who could figure this out. This is not our job. Our job is to raise, I see our job is to raise issues that are concerned to the community, to be the eyes and ears of the community and raise it to the city. And one of the concerns I have is that there may be people in our community who are whisked off and lost in the prison system for God knows how long. So that's my concern. So I just believe there has to be something between going scot-free and winding up in some forever prison. There just has to be. I don't know what it is. I don't know if anyone around the table, this table knows what it is, but there must be something.
I have a point that I'd like to make as a cyclist. Bad behavior is unacceptable and it's a problem.
Oh, I couldn't agree more.
But enforcement, let's start with the vehicles that block the bike lanes, because I am often in danger and I do bike on the sidewalk on occasion because I don't want to be in traffic. So if you want to start enforcement for safety, let's start with getting the double parking in the street and the vehicles, including police vehicles on Columbus Circle every morning that block the bike lane. So we have a lot of things we can do besides giving criminal summons to people who behave badly. I don't condone the bad behavior and something definitely needs to be done, but it needs to be a more widespread approach.
Thank you, Laura.
And can I just tell her that more and more buses will be getting the ACE cameras, which will take a picture of the bus lane and the immediately adjacent lane because they have a wider range. And that will help that problem.
Just by way of background, our former co-chair and longtime community board 7 member is also an MTA board member, so he knows everything about the transit angle to a lot of the issues we discussed on the board. Ken, do you want to, do you want to just wrap this up and figure out how you want to proceed? Okay, well, no.
There are two problems here. There's the bad behavior, which we've all seen, I've seen it. And then there's the lack of accountability for the bad behavior. Doug's question about, well, how are we going to address the bad behavior? We've discussed this before. It's been discussed a lot in the city. A lot of people, and I've been talking actually to a lot of candidates for public office recently, a lot of people are talking about holding the app companies responsible because they are literally forcing delivery workers to break the law. Otherwise, they're not going to get any more deliveries and they're not going to be able to earn a living. So, that's one way to do this, but the accountability thing, that's a different thing. Like, are people getting tickets and not responding to them, which is allegedly the reason for this. The police department can't tell us whether this is how, to what extent this is a problem. And so they've decided on this policy without having any data that it is even a problem. And, he's going to have to the detective's going to have to come back to us about, well, is this a problem? So this resolution just says, from what we know now, and this is what we should base it on, there is no data to say it's a problem. And we do know that the consequences are there's a wild discrepancy between the danger of the vehicle and what the punishment is. That's why we should.
So you're,
pass it.
okay, so you would like to continue to move this forward?
Yeah, as long as that doesn't preclude what you're talking about in June. I mean, it fails.
Well, I think that our options tonight are to take a vote as a committee, or to have it, and it's not going to be at the committee meeting where we would have this discussion. It would be a separate and a larger discussion, having the app companies there, having the deliveristas here, having.
We should have that.
But my point is, then we would be voting on a resolution in September. We did that.
With more data.
With more data, okay. Howard,
I just want to say something about safety. I'm not going to mention forever prisons again. Safety. When they crack down on cyclists, they're not cracking down on this person going 5 miles an hour through a red light with no one around. That's not I said it wrong. Those are the people they're going after. The person going 25 miles an hour the wrong direction, diagonally through the intersection, they can't go after them. When they have the crackdowns, the people they're going after are the people going 5 miles an hour through a T intersection with a red light. I've seen it. I actually got caught in a dragnet, and I will concede I've gone through red lights countless times. This time I did not go through a red light, but it was a dragnet, and they stopped me and 2 other people, and there was a 17-year-old kid who was crying. And all I want to, my point is that there are a lot of unsafe conditions on the street, but the police just can't go after the most egregious violators because they're zooming at diagonally through intersections. They can't be caught. It's the people going slowly, carefully through the red light, making sure no one's around 5 miles an hour. Those are the people who get caught in the dragnets. And that's not making the streets safer. So it's just
you
not.
are then suggesting that if we could find a way to address the
Again,
Zoomers.
I'll say it again. We pay high taxes for a reason.
Okay,
I'd love
okay,
for them
that's
to
helpful.
figure that out. I don't have the answer, but that's the answer to keeping the street safe. Not by harassing people again, going a few miles an hour through a red light. with
License
lights around.
plates and cameras would do the trick.
I
I
don't know.
think we can all agree on that issue related to safety, but let's
So I
do
would
the
just say,
final
let's
words
say
here, and
if
then
I
we're gonna.
I like your idea of doing something in June. To that extent, I feel like people on the board, for the most part, are pretty dug in one side or the other. We've had these discussions. We're familiar with the issue. I'm always open to listening to members of the public and other experts talk. I just don't know how productive it would be in the sense of people are just gonna say this and that. We can probably predict what they're already gonna say, whichever side of the issue they fall on. What would be really helpful for me is the legal aspect here, to have someone that comes in that understands the law, that is not necessarily on one side or the other side, but just be able to explain, what the law is. So under this policy, what exactly happens? Like, what's the order of what happened, and someone, is this information public? Does ICE get their hands on it? If somebody doesn't show up, someone gets one of these summonses, they can't get to court for some reason, do they have a bench warrant out?
Ken, how do you feel about that?
What's the proposal?
About having a legal, without the legal voice, like we thought by having, the whole question this whole time was the initiative. What is the initiative? What is the policy? And the closest we could come to, after reading Commissioner Tish's op-ed and trying to find anything, anywhere, Jami using her extensive network with the legal community, me contacting people within the PD, we found the PD, gratefully, to come and discuss what they have about the initiative. And that was it. We don't have these other voices that I think, to your point, are quite, in my view, speaking as a committee member, not as a co-chair, are critical to me being able to vote on this.
I don't see what information we're missing. We know that at this point, there's.
To support what you've put in the resolution about the potential for things like the deportations, or that's.
Wait, have you read a newspaper?
Okay, Howard, yes, I
true.
have, and I do know
Okay.
that that's happening.
Yeah.
Okay, but my point is, it sounds like you would like this to be voted on tonight. Are we ready to call the question then? And I mean,
What are you looking for, Andrew?
and let's,
The resolution.
Oh, okay, here you are.
Can it be posted?
So, yeah,
Jessie, do you hear us?
Can you share it or verbalize it?
We could read it, it's not short.
Put it on the screen if we could.
Jessie, can you post the resolution? I could try and share
I'm sure, I'm not gonna hold up everybody's.
no,
No, it's important.
I know, but I.
it sounds like certain people would like to have more voice, like you would like to
Yeah,
have.
I
a
would,
legal opinion.
I would say just.
Okay, you would like this to be voted on as is right now at the committee level,
Yeah, because I feel like time is of the essence.
okay? And
So,
others
maybe
feel,
everybody disappear before, so
Jay?
we know what we-
I want to move to table this until June. Make a motion to table it.
I second it.
just a note on that we're going to have a very busy agenda in June as well, and I don't
I
know.
also think as a procedural matter, I just realized we already have, I'm sorry,
Yeah.
I know you made a motion, but Ken's motion is on the
A
table
table,
And it's been
Right.
seconded.
and it's been seconded.
What's the justification for
I think-
tabling it for a month?
To get more information, but I do think that until,
Well, what information?
I feel that we need the data points that Ken has asked the detective
Legal
for,
information.
more legal information. I mean, I thought I did a pretty good job, Andrew, but. No, more legal information about what, we tried to get a lawyer here
Jamie is
who
the
actually goes into
Yeah.
legal aid, with clients like these, and just couldn't get them here.
I mean, it's just like a base question. So I'm a delivery worker, right? And I get one of these summonses. And then for whatever reason, I can't show up at court. Does that mean that hypothetically, the following
That is a
day, I
bench
can
warrant.
get,
That's a bench warrant.
I get picked up
You're gonna get a-
and I'm gonna go to jail? And then I could potentially,
Yes,
know,
absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, you end up
Yes.
in the
And
holding
you could
cell.
already potentially, just by virtue of getting the criminal summons,
Yes.
because it's on the public record.
Yep.
And ICE has access to the public
Mhm.
record. And they're looking for English to use
Any
as many people out of this country. as
Wait.
possible.
Okay, yeah, let's stick to the facts on
That's,
this.
that's a
That's a
fact.
fact.
Okay,
I mean,
okay.
That's a
That's not
really
a
I'm
fact.
not defending.
Can we get to the end of the resolution to see what it is that you're asking for?
Yeah, I think now's the time for questions of Ken about the specifics of the resolution, then I think we're ready to, if they
Therefore,
would
be
like
it
to-
resolved. Here we go.
Okay, read that.
I'm not,
Are you sharing this resolution? Because I can't even vote to table it or support it if I haven't read it.
It's in the drive.
Can you not see it, Doug?
Are we supposed to actually read resolutions?
I don't think he can see the
But
screen.
you know what? Why don't you just verbally read out the
Well,
therefore
it
be
also,
resolved?
well, you can verbalize it, but it also should be on the Zoom
Alex,
recording for the
Alex,
public.
okay. I left their workstation open.
Here it is.
Doug, can you see it?
Maybe we should read it out.
Yeah, I
loud.
can, but if you could just scroll a little bit, I can see it, but it's
Okay,
cut off.
it says, therefore be it resolved that Community Board 7 Manhattan calls on the NYPD to immediately end the policy of issuing criminal summonses to cyclists for low-level traffic violations. CB7 believes that holding cyclists to a far higher standard than motor vehicle drivers is unjust, puts immigrant workers at grave risk, and sends the wrong message about the actual danger on our streets.
That's it.
Okay,
The
can
sec-
approve my reading.
the second sentence of that resolved section doesn't belong there. It belongs in the whereas clauses. It's not asking, it's conclusory facts.
Are you voting for this resolution?
Are we voting?
Are we calling, are you ready?
Wait, I need,
What do you think?
It's on, well, then.
I'd like for us to wrap up debate now and discussion.
Well, that-
there's a
that-
point of information. Is it-
Yeah.
If you vote for it, I will agree to move it to the.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You should
think
live
we can move
I
on.
know.
Okay, so the question has been called.
Yes.
Wait,
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 wait a second. Wait, the point of, does it, I'm sorry. May I ask a question? May I ask a question?
Doug, quickly, yes.
Is it a fact? Is it a 100% fact that the summonses that are being issued are criminal summonses? Because my understanding is that it is going to criminal court, it is not a criminal summons. Is that right or wrong? Because if it's not a criminal summons, then we have to write it correctly.
It's a criminal.
It's a
summons.
criminal summons. That's the whole point of this.
My understanding is
I
a
mean,
violation.
can you read the text?
Even if it's the first violation.
This is actually a pretty clear issue. It's a summons that can become criminal if you
It's a
don't.
Yes.
violation.
Yeah.
You know,
Don't
that
show
goes to
up.
penalty. It's a
Violation,
criminal
a
violation.
violation is a legal, there's a legal definition of a violation. It's different than a misdemeanor
That's right.
or a felony,
That's
which has many classes.
It's a
It is
traffic
a
infraction.
violation.
She says
But there are
here,
different ways of dealing with a violation.
she says
Make
here
it a
in
criminal
the,
summons.
How is
Yeah.
that-
Hold on.
We have a quote from the New York Post. Let's hear it.
and to make, well, this is her, this is.
I know.
To make our enforcement more effective, these especially dangerous violations are now issued as criminal court summonses or C summons.
Criminal court.
Criminal court,
summons.
and they're
So
more.
it's to the
There's
court.
still violation.
Okay,
So
so
previous
Ken,
to
you
They're
want,
criminal violations.
Yes,
the
they're
criminal
Well, then it goes on.
They're not, Howard, you know better.
do you want to change it from criminal summonses to criminal court summonses?
Sure.
Okay, now it's criminal court summonses.
Okay. And if people want, we could move that second sentence to the
Yeah,
where.
sure. I'm fine with it.
Okay.
We can make it right before the end.
So
Thanks.
why don't we just review what the there is, what the therefore is, and then.
Okay, Ken, do you want to
Just
read
one
the
sentence.
therefore clause?
I don't think CB7 believes anything like that I know of.
Well, we're trying to get it.
It's right here on the screen.
Therefore be resolved. The Community Board 7 Manhattan calls on the NYPD to immediately end the policy of issuing criminal court summonses to cyclists for low-level traffic violations.
So question's been called.
Yes.
All right. Jamie.
Are we saying anything about that CB7 recognizes that there is bad behavior and that in the context, but this is the wrong way to do it, but that we acknowledge that there is a problem?
And that
I would have no problem.
Hey, I know we passed resolution.
Yeah.
This just, I just feel like this puts people in a bad.
I think we
A
do
bad
better to pass a
position.
resolution asking for summonses for car drivers.
I would also like why,
Which they
if-
already
in my
get.
opinion, if you're driving a car,
A
they're
license plate is
it's like,
Okay, well, the question has been called on this resolution as it's written.
But did Doug want a friendly amendment?
Well, I couldn't see the top part of the resolution was cut off, but I don't, I just was, the question was, is there anything in there that is saying that Commissioner Tish's, action here, I guess the point is that we're saying it's misguided, that there is a problem that we're not solving for it in the right way. But if we're completely silent on everything's fine, the streets are fine, nobody's violating anything, e-bikes, everybody who follows the laws, that's also the wrong message.
Well,
Missing something.
I guess we're being asked to vote on this resolution. Voting in support of it means that you support the language that's in this resolution.
But
Voting-
Doug's proposing, Doug,
Friendly amendment.
if this means you'll vote for it,
Okay, so
we can definitely put in
He types it.
language that acknowledges that behavior on the streets from some cyclists
It's a problem.
needs improvement, but this is not the way to deal with it. Is that okay, Doug?
I'm reading what's being typed at the
I
moment.
think something to the effect, if you want to put something into the effect of, we agree that with Commissioner Tish that behavior on the streets of
so
some
we just said,
cyclists.
Doug, if that's in, does that mean your vote, before we do this, does
Yeah.
that mean that you're
Yeah,
voting
you
for
gonna
it,
vote
Doug?
this, Doug, because we're spending time on it.
Well, you're putting me on the
No,
spot.
let's not spend time going
Yeah.
through this
Yeah,
exercise if it doesn't
You're
mean
gonna
you're.
get put on the spot.
I mean, look, we've had a week to look at this resolution as it is. This is not, I think right
what's
now, it's like
circulated?
we're voting on,
Let's vote on the language.
Well, there's a
As
friendly
is.
amendment on the table.
Okay,
Doug,
so I
Doug,
put
I could workshop the
Alex,
language and
you
at full
British?
board, you can,
sometimes.
if it makes.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how to spell.
well, we're asking us to vote on something. We want to make sure we say the language before we vote on it.
Yeah.
We all get another bite at the apple at full board, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Good. I mean, what is the language now?
if it passes,
What
so,
did you write, Alex? I can't read.
no, we're voting on this now. He's,
But he's just, can we get the new language?
Did you put something in?
I mean, I'm not, the behavior on the streets from some cyclists is a problem. We agree with Commissioner Tish that this problem.
It's an issue that needs to be addressed.
But this is not the right. This policy is not the right approach.
I just
So
want to
that-
be very.
So it's negating
yeah,
the
it negated what you
additional
just
language.
said. Yeah.
No, it's not, it's just saying.
Yes, it is.
No, it
Hey
isn't.
Doug, why don't you just abstain?
There are other ways, that we can crack down on the app companies.
I think this is a good,
Well, Gail, I think it's important to know what Gail Brewer's position on it. I think it's relevant. She basically,
We all know that
He proposed to the criminal summons.
we're Community Board 7, we're not.
Yeah, we don't work for Gail.
Yeah.
no, I'm not saying it's just a point of information, and she happened to oppose it, but she also said it's a problem, I think, and that is, I agree with her sentiment.
Perhaps in the therefore be it resolved, we could say, calls them to end the policy of issuing criminal court summonses to cyclists for low-level traffic violations and find another way to punish.
No.
Just vote.
Find another way to improve behavior. We don't want to punish.
Can we vote?
You want the stick?
I added that. I think that's a good answer. Is that, do you agree with that?
I think, yeah.
Yeah,
Makes it better.
okay.
Or we say,
Now you're gonna vote for it. That's great.
or improve behavior, or hold people responsible. So if we were doing something like someone driving their car through a
We
red
don't
light.
even know that.
Mitigating bad behavior is what it is.
We
We're
don't know
spending a
that.
lot of
having
time
penalties to
on
change
I
a
think the goal is
resolution.
to get people to stop violating the law. I think we could all agree. I think the streets would be safer. And so there's
Absolutely.
improved behavior.
All right, but if this was about stopping a car driving through a red light, would we be saying, let's find a way to improve behavior?
Yeah.
Or
No,
would we be
absolutely
saying,
not.
let's
Absolutely.
punish
Mitigate.
people?
That's the point, we're talking about 30-pound bikes.
Well, I think.
Mitigating bad behavior, mitigating bad behavior. That's,
I have all.
Minimizing,
Okay.
mitigating is the word I,
I don't know what mitigating means.
To mitigate that behavior.
What's wrong with
What
improving?
is with you and the,
It's mitigate.
There's so much,
Are
there's.
we ready? Because we're
there's
well
so much
over
time.
time.
and find another way to mitigate. Oh, yeah, that's good.
Okay, just checking with our board chair and who has not spoken yet. I think she's gone or.
She fell
Well, no,
asleep.
this isn't, she's not falling.
Yeah, I know.
I think she would have raised her hand. but
You want to weigh in?
Can we vote?
You're muted. though.
We're ready to vote unless our board
She's
chair.
gonna talk.
I think you should go ahead and vote.
Come on, take the vote.
Okay. The question, no.
Call the
You're
question.
managing the session, go ahead.
I think the word out is better now.
All those in favor of Ken's resolution? Doug? Yes. Okay.
That's
so
a yes.
5. No. Ready? Abstain. That's 3.
Passes 5-4. How's that?
Hold on, non-committee, we just want to. Non-committee, Miss Barbara's no longer on, it's just Beverly, so.
I'll
in
abstain.
favor? Okay, 0 to 0 to 1 to 0, no other non-committee members here. Okay, so the resolution passes and will go to full board for a vote on June 3rd.
And we're still talking about holding that forum, correct?
No,
No.
We're not. We're not.
Nobody's
no.
at forum.
Okay.
That's why I should.
We just held
abstain
that
and vote
forum,
no.
right.
I thought we would get a lot more info from the forum.
If you want to arrange.
If we can
a
bring it
forum.
up as new business in June and if we want to, but for
I
now,
thought that
this
was a
is.
done deal, but
No.
okay.
It was an alternative.
You wanna change your vote?
That was an item that was,
Alternative proposal.
it was put on the table as an
The
option. and
language is
that
better
was-
now, though.
Okay, so I just, again, want to thank Ken. I want to thank the PD for coming tonight, and hopefully this is useful information
Thanks
that
for
you can
coming.
take back to the commissioner,
Thank you very much.
and to
And
the
if you can
team.
get any of us the answers
Yeah.
to those questions, that would be great.
Absolutely,
Thank you.
definitely.
And we, again, really appreciate you doing this on short notice, and, yeah, appreciate it. So we will be in touch. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And I guess, Colleen, right?
Yes.
We're up with D, and if you'd like to stay and listen to our DOT report.
I do,
Is there anything you'd like to add? Like,
before I want to leave, I want to make sure that you all know, again, that I'm here representing the police commissioner from
Yes.
police headquarters. I will make my email available to you. You can share that, but you do know how to contact us, and there will be a follow-up regarding the questions that you asked. I'll try to have that within a day or two, but I'll be working on that tonight. So when I leave now, it's actually so I can start working on that, because
Thank you.
it is a
No
pressing,
explanation needed.
it is a pressing topic in our office. So I will be
Okay,
working
well,
on it.
hopefully this
as
is
soon
a
as I
good
get
case
that.
study for you of how the
Absolutely.
community is reacting to the summons issue. I'm sure we're just anecdotal for this community, but
Absolutely.
appreciate your time and look forward to hopefully working collaboratively with you to solve what we know is a big problem.
Absolutely. So thank you all. Have a wonderful night.
Thank you so
Thank
much
you,
for
thanks
coming.
again.
DOT report.
All right, it's Colleen Chattergoon is up. Hi.
Thank you for with us for all of this.
Yeah, sure, no problem. So I do have some good updates for the community. The first thing that I like to say is that I'm finalizing a date for the 70-second walkthrough with CB7 leadership, Streetopia, and a few other stakeholders. We agree we agree that the walkthrough is a good idea, and we want to do this before we come to the community board to give a presentation on the 72nd Street bike lane. Just to let you know, we are finalizing the data for that. And in terms of the timeline when we're coming, I will let you know, but it's definitely going to be this year, just so you know. So fingers crossed that, that this is a good step. And the reason why it took some time to schedule the walkthrough, I'm still working on it, is because we have like 5 other units that would like to join us, because based on the presentation that Streetopia did, there are a lot of ideas that they have that requires input from other units, such as our public RAM or street lighting or transit development and so forth and so forth. So I will keep you posted on that. The other item that I have on my list is the Central Park markings. As you know, DOT milled and paved Central Park. And the striping was done last weekend in the park, specifically from 59th Street to 91st Street on the east side. And while there's still a lot of work to be done, there are some visible lanes that should improve safety and in organization as well. So this project is being carried out in phases, but as you know, we've had a lot of rain, which delayed the final markings. But we are going to move forward to get those markings installed. Additionally, the Conservancy has recently hired 6 new park rangers who are present in the park every day. Rather than being stationed at fixed posts, they are mobile, primarily patrolling the drives and actively addressing any violations that they encounter. So, which is good. And we are working in coordination with the Conservancy to complete the markings. The other item is that we sent a letter to the board regarding an open street application. This is an application that pertains to Amsterdam Avenue from Cathedral Parkway to West 106th Street. And we're requesting the community board to review the application and provide comments to us within 45 days. And this is actually from the Columbus Amsterdam bid. And the day that they're looking for the open street, the start date would be July 5th to November 8th. And it's only for one day. It's Saturday, and it's from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. So if the board can take a look at that and let us know if you have any issues, that would be great. The other item that I have is that we also sent a, sure, go ahead.
Every Saturday between that time frame, not just.
I think it's one day, right?
It's one day. It's one day. It's only on Saturday from 2 p.m. to 11 p.m. That's correct.
Enough times yeah. And
Yeah, so it's every Saturday. The other item is that we sent a letter to the board regarding our plan to reduce the speed limit on West 103rd Street from Amsterdam Avenue to Riverside. And the speed limit will be lowered from 20 miles per hour to 10 miles per hour. And this change is a result of Sammy's Law, which gives the city of New York the authority to reduce speed limits in areas near schools, open streets, shared streets, and other designated locations. So that's really a good initiative that we have started doing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we are looking to do this at 250 locations citywide. The other item is that a few of CB7 leadership joined myself and the commissioner at our micro hub ribbon cutting ceremony, which was on April 22nd. And I have to say, it was such a great event. The commissioner announced the agency will establish on-street micro hub zones as part of a local delivery pilot hub to address negative environmental and safety effects of truck deliveries. And this is a 3-year micro hub pilot program, which will provide safe, dedicated spaces for truck operators to transfer deliveries onto safer and more sustainable modes of transportation for the last leg of delivery, including e-cargo bikes, hand carts, and smaller electric Sprinter vans. And CB7 is very fortunate to have 3 locations of micro hubs in the community, and it's Amsterdam and West 73rd Street. Amsterdam and West 85th Street, and Broadway and West 77th Street. So there are signs at these locations which are enforced by PD. The microhub zones, they are about 80 to 100 feet in length. And we're going to work with the companies to monitor the location to obtain, data to determine how successful it is. If it is successful, as you know, our pilots become permanent programs. So we are hoping and that it is. And so far, we haven't had any issues, which is good. So if the community receives any feedback, please do share that with us. We would like to know if there are any concerns that you have. The other item I have is that I'm looking forward to scheduling a walkthrough with CB7 leadership. This is for the requests that came before us at intersections that have left turns. So I will plan to invite our signals division to join us because they're the experts and they can dive into the signal timing at all of these intersections and the crosswalks. Last but not least, CB7, along with myself and representatives from Assemblymember Linda Rosenthal's office, along with Councilmember Gail Brewer, we had a really good walkthrough at Amsterdam at 70th and 77th Street to discuss the deliveristas and the bikes that are on the sidewalks. So we are looking again at a bike corral in the curb lane at Amsterdam between 70th and 71st Street. There is space there that would allow us to install a corral. So we would have to have further discussion with our parking division because it would mean removing a few commercial parking zones, which we can look to create at other side streets that may not have commercial parking. So I assured the CB that I will keep them posted on that initiative. I know the community is very anxious with us having to install the bike corrals because there's so much clutter with these e-bikes that's on the sidewalk. A request that we also received is the possibility of removing the bike racks that are in the sidewalk there. So that's something we are also looking into. So, and last but not least, we will be coming to the community board in June to give an update on the rotunda. So I will reach out to Max to add that on the agenda. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just
I just had a quick question.
Sure.
Colleen, do the micro hubs, are they limited hours or 24 hours?
There are no specific hours on them. I think they're open throughout. There's no limited hours.
And especially for the item that we have coming up next month on curb access, I know Howard, since that's it would be, I think, it's a really interesting item that could be useful for you.
Yes, that's fine.
Question for Colleen? Colleen, on the streets that you're making 10 miles an hour, aside from signage, will the signage be like really obvious to a motorist that the speed limit is changing for that block or blocks?
Yes, there are going to be advanced signages that would indicate that. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Is that just during school hours?
No, it's not during school hours. It's all day, not during school hours, no.
This is part of the implementation of Sammy's law.
Yes, it is.
Right. Colleen, I had a couple of questions. I just want to make sure that on the left turns, it's not all left turns. It's where drivers are facing oncoming traffic and making left turns.
We gave her.
Yeah, I just want to make sure.
Yes, that's correct, Ken. And the list, Jami and Elizabeth share that list with us. It's actually a resolution from the board.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the list
all
that
the
you don't
way
know.
Yeah.
My other question is,
West End.
this is too late, but, you know, somebody's been going around the neighborhood, redoing the crosswalks, you know, and the ADA ramps, and
Mm-hmm.
all the crossings, and there's like a lot of money being spent on that. But it seems to me that, I didn't know about it, I'm a member of this committee, I never heard that it was being done. I would have suggested that they take the opportunity to put in curb extensions in some places, so cars can slow down, will slow down and turn.
Yeah, the problem with that, it's possible that not every location might be feasible for the curb extension. So,
Right,
I
but
mean,
that's the
yeah.
reason why to come to us, because I could have said, well, you know, 92nd, and could you look at 92nd in Columbus, you know? And maybe it wouldn't be possible there, but maybe it would. And now millions of dollars are being spent, and we don't get any curb extensions out of this.
Well, Ken, a lot of our projects are safety improvement projects that we come before and we present to the community board. Curb extension is always something that we have in our toolkit. And, when we reconstruct the pedestrian ramps, again, it might not be feasible to do curb extensions at the locations. And then keep in mind that the materials that we use are temporary. So even if we do construct a ped ramp, we can always go back and look at curb extensions at that particular location. And again, that is something that we have in our toolkit that we always look at when we're working on our SIPs, which are the safety improvement projects.
Hello, hi Colleen, Alex Bell, 2 questions. On the FOIL request we have open about the news racks, I know we had sent over the list of 65 news racks with the map, and you had said that you would get back to us on the DOT next steps about inspecting and then violations and then removal of the news racks. Any update on that FOIL request?
Hey, Alex, I mean, I think I did mention to you to submit a FOIL request, and I did communicate with you, and I think we closed the loop on that, Alex. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, and then we all went out and we took pictures of all the news racks, and then we made a map, and then I emailed it to you, and then you said, great, I'm gonna follow up with the team responsible. So.
I'm gonna have to check my email on that, Alex, because I think the last conversation we had, we did close the loop and a FOIL request that you submitted.
Yeah, I'll just ping back the same thread and you can see it
Okay,
right
that's fine. Perfect.
And then the second one was about the daylighting, right? Did we cover that in the list? I remember we passed the resolution about daylighting and we said, we'll start with 5 and it'd be really quick to implement, and then we gave you the 5.
Did not.
So Alex, again, with the daylighting request and the resolution for the community board, we did provide a response to the community board. And I did share that with you, if you recall, because you had inquired about several resolutions that was passed by the community board, and I did respond to you on that. And I think our response about the daylighting is that when we are implementing our safety improvement projects, we're going to be looking at these corridors to determine whether we can physically, put, a planter or a granite block at that location intersection to daylight it. Keep in mind that not every intersections citywide would be able to daylight, but we are looking at locations, citywide when we are implementing our safety improvement projects.
I think we have Doug and then Jay quickly.
Mhm.
Doug.
Yeah, we did take a walk on Amsterdam in the 70s again, and thank you, Colleen, and many others for joining. I know we've been on this fact-finding mission, and I don't think, Colleen, it was on you. I think Gail Brewer said on the removal of some of those bike racks and corrals, I think we haven't determined what property line it is on. I still want to know that, because I think the procedure changes pretty radically if it's on private property or if it's on New York City property, or if it's an easement, or if it's a publicly owned private space. So I think I see Eric Papa here too, right?
Eric
So
is here, yeah.
Yeah, so I still want to know where is it? Is it city property or private property? That's all.
Yeah,
Doug,
absolutely. We
Colleen,
did,
can
we
I
did
just-
raise that, yeah.
Doug, if, just to partially answer that, we had two outcomes from that walkthrough. One was Gail following up with the borough president's office because she hired the person who was responsible for exactly what you talked about. The second was, I think, what Eric is here for tonight, which is about the potential alternate location, which Colleen is looking into. And I want to just thank what we thought was going to be like not possible is now re-entering the realm of possibility, thanks to Eric and members of the community pushing us to get this walkthrough that CB7 organized. So I just want to thank all the stakeholders because I think it does indicate like a way that we were able to sort of have DOT revisit something that may not have happened without the community input. So
And Elizabeth for
no, it was the whole,
hurting the
all of
cat.
us, but it was all the stakeholders there, and it does, you know, for other projects that we work on as a team, I think. That's a good thing. Eric, I know you're here. We're really running short on time tonight, but if there is anything specific to 71st Street that you wanted to address.
Yeah, I was just gonna, yeah, I was about, thanks for saying that, Elizabeth. You took the words right out of my mouth. I'll follow up with Tom at 1 Sherman Square about that property line thing, and see if I can get a clear answer. But the other thing I was really unrelated to that is how do you get a pedestrian, you know, the ped crossing ramp repaired or rebuilt on your corner?
So, you know, I'm glad you raised that question, Eric. So if there are locations that you want us to look at, we have our sidewalks division, which underneath that is our ped ramp unit as well. We will have inspectors go out there and then we will add it on the list. Right now, the city is focusing on repairing ramps that are old and outdated. So the work that you're seeing, that work is being done probably in-house or by DDC contractors. A lot of our ped ramp work is done by DDC contractors, just so you know. So if you know of any locations, you can always send an email to Max or myself, and I can schedule the inspection.
Great, thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Colleen, is that the end of your presentation?
Yes, it is. The end of my update.
Square. The walkthrough.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were both there.
Yeah, I mean, I think she covered it really well. Micro hubs you talked about, helicopters.
So yeah, we just have, Colleen, I think we're done with DOT, so thank you for joining
Thank you,
us.
Colleen.
You're
Feel free to stay
welcome.
on. We've just got a couple more quick things and they're not resolutions necessarily. I think Jessie or Alex is gonna help, thank you, pull this up. We wanted to briefly touch on the helicopter issue, given since the time of our last committee meeting, Jami and I talked about it, and we felt like it was something to just bring up, and Ken, we've talked to you a little bit about it. We wanted to show both the city council has passed legislation since the time we last met about the non-essential helicopters. And in addition, we wanted to pull up the resolution that we most recently passed, which was in January of 2021, which was a unanimous vote in support of basically the ending taxpayer support for the marketing of helicopter tours over Manhattan, as you can see in the title of the resolution. So this was not meant to necessarily, we don't have a resolution on the table, but we could put one on the table if we want. If there's anything we want to do to amplify what's currently going on with the city council legislation that passed, anything more, other angles we want to bring up. Ken, I know you had some suggestions and thoughts on this. This is the time we wanted to just briefly entertain it and see if we wanted to bring that forward in resolution form tonight. So Ken, do you have anything?
Can I just, sorry, I don't know if we're gonna vote on anything, but just to put it out there, I'm on the executive committee of NYC Tourism and Conventions, which is formerly NYC and Co. So just.
You'll be abstaining with pause. Okay.
Well, this wouldn't necessarily talk about them.
Okay, yeah, no, I was just saying, because I know.
But this board, before we passed that one, we passed in January of 2020, we passed a resolution in support of the Adler bill, which keeps getting reintroduced, and that would ban non-essential helicopters. Non-essential means commuter and tour sightseeing. And allows everything else. But the bulk of what we're seeing in the skies are commuter and sightseeing, mostly sightseeing. That bill is kind of the killer app for getting rid of helicopters, because it would be federal, and it would say that within a 20 or 25 mile radius of the Statue of Liberty, you cannot have fly non-essential helicopters. And that would get rid of the New Jersey helicopters, the ones coming from New York City heliports, Westchester, coming from going to Long Island, and coming to our heliports.
That would actually cover all 3 New York area airports too.
Right, heliports,
Yeah.
and the airports, right? So that's the ideal one, but we can't absolve ourselves of responsibility as New Yorkers or as residents of New York State. And so that's why there are city bills on the table still. This bill that just passed is not going to take effect until 2029, and it only bans the noisiest helicopters. And there was great debate when this was being passed about how many are actually that noisy. Is it 2%, 20%? It was bad enough that the helicopter industry was very opposed to this bill that passed, and they kind of were putting out press releases like this is the end of the world. But definitely don't think it is. And anyway, for them, the end of the world is not going to come for another 4 years. There are other things that the city could do right now. One of the things is that they could ban non-essential helicopters from the 2 city-owned heliports, which is downtown Manhattan Heliport, which is now called downtown Skyport, and the East 34th Street Heliport, which get a total of about 45,000, close to 50,000 flights a year. So that has been a bill in the city council, and it's still in the city council. It didn't get traction this year, but we could put our weight behind that, which I think we should. There's also a bill in the state legislature carried by Brad Siegel, our state senator, to do the same for the West 30th Street heliport, which is actually in a park. Hudson River Park Trust Hudson River Park is where it is. It goes right by that bike path. I bike by it all the time, breathing jet fuel. It's terrible. And so there's a bill to ban non-essential helicopters there. And I think we should support that. And then we should support, and then there's in the state, there's also a bill in the state and the Senate, it's like a noise tax on non-essential helicopters. When the Senate version is $50 a seat, the Assembly version is $100 a seat. I think we should support either one, preferably the Assembly version, or both of them. And so I think we should have a resolution supporting all 4 of these things, and we should re-up our support for the Nadler bill.
So it's the Nadler bill, the city, the state, and the noise on non-essential helicopters are the 4.
Something has been banned from the West 30th Street heliport. I forget what it is now, but they're not getting as many flights as they used to have.
No, they're getting the same number.
Something was
there's
banned.
a crane there that they're doing some construction, so they may. But there was a bill that Brad Siegel got through last year that is going to force them, when they renew the lease for the heliport, they're going to have to move it offshore onto barges, ideally, or that's probably what they're going to do. So that may, it's still not great, but it's at least a little further from.
Ken, I know you said one about the like the radius, but for example, on this resolution, when it says over New York City, does that include the rivers? Is there like a distinction between helicopters coming in and that just fly over the water versus fly over land?
Yeah, I think over New York City refers to New York City ends somewhere like the middle of the Hudson.
Okay.
But 25 miles radius from the Statue of Liberty would include all of Manhattan.
Yeah.
can I say?
Much more.
I'd much more, yes.
Doug, do you have?
Yeah, just
go ahead.
as a student pilot, there's Class B airspace that's directly over Manhattan. And on the Hudson River, for example, it's called a VFR corridor. But the 25-mile radius, I think, would just cover everything. But it is distinctly different airspace that's actually over Manhattan. You have to be cleared in by LaGuardia Airport on the north or Newark Airport on the south of Manhattan. So, but yeah, obviously these resolutions are banning all non-essential over the borough of Manhattan. But it is technically a different corridor on Hudson River. It's actually called the Hudson River Corridor, the VFR corridor. It goes north and south, but the helicopters do a specific pattern in, but the 25-mile radius thing, I think it would cover all of it.
Yeah, Doug, I'm not sure, you're probably right, I'm sure you're right when it comes to planes, but helicopters, I think below 2,000 feet can do pretty much anything they want, and, you know, Fly 9, flies out of New Jersey, and is the ones that are flying over Central Park.
Yeah,
They have very creative routes.
The airspace that's over Manhattan and over New York is like an upside down birthday cake. And it is absolutely controlled space. It's Class B space. And they have to fly below the air traffic specifically for LaGuardia. The helicopter or a civilian aircraft cannot go over Manhattan without being specifically cleared in by LaGuardia or Newark on the lower side of the borough. I mean, they do a lot. They get cleared in all the time. But if they're in the VFR corridor, because the point is if they're landing at the airport on the Hudson River, they get cleared in, they're under the corridor. But if they go over Manhattan, that's Class B.
Well, that's true. If that's true, that's another reason to get rid of them, because we have air traffic controllers who are, you know, quitting their jobs because they're so strained and overworked, and they have to deal with sightseeing helicopters, you know, and clear them. That's crazy.
Yeah, they do have to get cleared to go over. Yeah.
I never thought of that.
So how do we feel about a potential resolution?
So you want to wrap in city, state, Adler, and the noise initiatives all into one supported resolution.
Is there any possibility to keep it similar to what we did in 2020? I'm just wondering, well, to be it resolved, let's see, if kind of supports our, I'm just trying to think if like the noise tax piece is somewhat different from the other three.
We just passed a resolution saying we support every single piece of legislation that regulates, bans, or diminishes helicopter traffic.
Non-essential.
Well, yes, non-essential.
Can I ask
We
a question?
support everything.
What is,
Right.
what if anything, and people may not care, but, you know, just kind of the not just direct economic impact of this, but, you know, we are the global city of the world, and like it or not, many people who are important in many different ways and influential, like I presume use helicopters, come in and out of the city. And I know people may kind of like laugh and be like, let them take a car like anyone, but you know, you're a global financial capital and all these other things, like
You're a world famous basketball player.
you're many reasons why people, but there, I mean, there's many reasons, like we could shake our head and kind of laugh at it, but people use helicopters as a means of travel. I think it's different, which is distinctly different than a tourist just kind
I
of
think we're
flying.
saying
over.
they shouldn't.
Yeah.
That's the point.
No, I'm just saying, but like, what is the impact and the influence like of this, you know, like if some, you know.
Yeah, like to your point that some of these corporations, it may just be a cost of doing business to like pay a tax.
Right.
Yeah, I don't know, you know.
But we had an economist look at this and he said it would significantly cut if we had $100 tax, for instance. I mean, yeah, it wouldn't stop, you know, visas.
Yeah. Well, I think wasn't that part of his thing in Long Island City to be more like a private
Oh, right, heliport.
On top or something, but no, I just don't know. I just, you know,
I thought maybe
What-
Tom Cruise was helicoptering in the other night for the premiere at Lincoln Center. Because everything was.
I point out that there are some world-class cities that don't
That
allow.
don't?
Yeah, Paris, London, I believe, doesn't.
I mean, I honestly don't feel as strongly about this as some people do. I don't particularly enjoy the ambient New York sound of the helicopter. And I appreciate that there are some people who may want to take a helicopter and have the good fortune to take it. So I do think this is one of those balancing, very hard balancing questions for us. And the real question for us as Community Board 7 is, what does the community want, need, and appreciate?
Yeah, like what's the
It's
difference
not
of,
what we want,
like,
it's what our community members want.
other than it carries fewer people, what's the difference between an airplane and a helicopter? Like, why would this apply to like airplanes? They shouldn't.
They're usually higher.
Well,
anyway.
the helicopter
why
has
is
an
it always-
impact on the community.
Well, I'm saying you said they're going, they're changing to electric, we have this thing that passed, they'll change the stat. I'm just asking questions, like,
Yeah.
Also,
Safety.
helicopters are really polluting, and they carry very few
but isn't the
passengers.
same with the sound, they're off to transfer to like electric, which I don't even know if that's a thing now, electric
Well,
helicopter.
nobody knows how
I think that's
far
years
off that
off.
is, so we're talking about fossil fuel. based.
Isn't that the 2029 or not?
The traffic helicopters you hear around rush hour are incredible.
There's also
Yeah.
the safety.
Can I ask Ken
issue,
a
the
question?
regulatory aspect
Yeah.
that I personally
Hey,
think is.
I mean,
an
Ken,
issue.
I think Ken's the resident expert on the Stop and Shop movement, right? I think, but the question I have is on some of those shuttle flights, like someone takes a helicopter, let's say from Newark Airport, and they wanted to land on the river, not, if it is going to be a barge or if it's going to be extended. My understanding is that we're banning that too. I'm not talking about, are we still on?
You're on, keep going, Doug.
Okay. So I guess, so the question I have is does the ban or all these various resolutions, if a helicopter took a commuter from Newark Airport and landed at the Hudson River, and never went over Manhattan, are we banning that too? Or are those resolutions banning that?
Yes, 25 miles.
Right. I just wondered, if there was any distinction in having the helicopters circumvent, never go over, never hover in Manhattan, but they go around and over a body of water, land near the body of water, but never cross Manhattan. I wasn't sure if that was ever an option.
Maybe, these corporate, masters of the universe had to take mass transit and take the train from Newark to Manhattan. We might actually get better mass transit.
I don't know why I can't see you guys anymore, but.
We're working on a technical.
Okay.
So I think. No. I mean, I guess we're just trying to wrestle with like what would be most effective to get action on some of these items, and whether it's do nothing and just have this conversation tonight, whether it's write a letter and attach our old resolution and maybe say there are some modifications to, updates to this since 2021 that we want to make sure get addressed and send that to stakeholders, or to actually do a resolution tonight that outlines these four items.
I think it's really important to do them all, because different parts of the puzzle are absolving themselves of response. So there's some people in the city council members who say, oh, well, it's really New Jersey's problem.
Right.
And yeah, ultimately, the federal legislation is what's going to solve the whole thing. But I should mention that the federal legislation is now bipartisan. Nicole Maliotakis.
Yeah, I saw that.
Because Staten Island's getting hit now. So
What's this, what is considered essential?
Essential?
Essential, yeah.
Police, news.
Ambulance.
Yeah.
Medevac, even professional photographer.
Governor and what about?
Yeah.
Police. I worked in the state legislature the last few years. That's how I commuted home.
John Liu is a licensed helicopter pilot, right?
State
Licensed
helicopter.
pilot. He helicopters in and out.
We flew up on the state plane from LaGuardia
and back on the state helicopter.
I flew once from, I flew.
No delays, no airports, you just go up, go down, like got down 30th Street, went home.
I did that once from Albany here, and I'm saying it was night and slow, when you first leave going out of
It's
Albany, and
amazing.
it is, but then it's like dark and you're over, I don't know, Farblad, and you're like, oh, and then a little
Your
wind.
life is in the hands.
Yeah, it was a little.
You remember,
Okay.
remember Donald, I hate to bring up the name, but Trump had a shuttle from Manhattan to Atlantic City. And when I was a stand-up comedian, I took it back and forth. But I, don't really particularly like the name tag, but he used to live in the Steel Pier. They would land in the Steel Pier on Atlantic City from 34th Street on the west side.
But just ask that Spanish family about the view.
No, seriously, why don't we just do a comprehensive, say we support all of these
If that,
proposed
Yeah.
solutions and be done with it.
Yeah.
so we can draft something up, and if we're all in agreement, should we I guess we call the question and take a vote?
Yeah, take a vote. We're supporting an omnibus.
As long as we're
support.
gonna enumerate.
We're all in agreement on something, or it seems like we are.
Well, let's see.
I guess-
Even, surface to air missiles if somebody is
If there's a
proposing.
violation, if the criminal summonses and then
Absolutely.
surface.
No
air-
summons, no.
So Ken, are you making a
Just
motion,
station
omnibus
you on
motion?
the west side.
Putting an omnibus resolution on the
It's an
table?
omnicopter resolution.
Okay.
Okay, anybody seconding Ken's motion?
I'll second Ken's. motion.
Oh my gosh, wait a minute.
Wow.
Yes.
Take a picture.
Make a major
Can I
event.
see a hand? Can I see a handshake again?
That means pigs are flying too. Oh my God.
You
All right,
gotta
let's
send
take
that
a
to the
vote. I'm
board.
gonna,
Brotherhood
everyone's
week.
gone. I gotta. Okay, let's take a vote on the, Ken and Jay
No,
motion.
no, no.
Oh.
No, I don't. Terrence.
Okay, let's take a vote on Ken's omnibus
Steal
motion.
his thunder.
How many in favor? Who's in favor? 1, 2. Oh, everyone, except we have, anybody opposed?
Yeah, Doug. You get Doug?
Yeah, Doug, I see Doug's
I'm a
little,
yes.
Doug's little electronic hand.
I'm a yes.
Abstain. And, cause.
He's
Yeah, well,
abstaining
that's
for cause.
abstaining.
I got it.
Yeah, cause.
He's abstaining
Or
for cause.
cause.
Oh, abstain
Yeah.
for cause, right?
So
Yeah.
8-0.
You can't abstain for cause. You're ineligible to vote.
Ineligible to
Yeah.
vote.
Yeah.
Is there any non-committee person?
No, she's gone.
All
So it's,
Off the chart.
Right.
okay, good. All right, Andrew,
Neighborhood.
tight on time.
Well, it's not
Let's go.
neighborhood, but it's
Okay.
a lot of good news, actually.
Okay.
After 17 weeks of closure and incredible work, the A train has resumed service to the Rockaways, and the S shuttle from Broad Channel to Rockaway Park is back in service. They did an amazing job of rebuilding the South Channel Bridge and the Hamels Y, which is a huge concrete piece that where the trains separate to go to both Rockaway Park and Far Rockaway. It was done on time and actually slightly under budget, I believe. And it's done in time for the beach season, which is great, and for commuters to once again have a one-seat ride from the Rockaway Peninsula to Manhattan. So that's great news. Tomorrow is the new deadline for Sean Duffy, from Sean Duffy, for us to release, stop congestion pricing. Clearly, it is not going to stop tomorrow. It will take a court action to stop it. So we will see what penalties and what federal dollars he will threaten New York with. The MTA is ready to go immediately to court. They have a lawsuit pending should they try to withhold federal dollars to New York for any reason at all. Which is really interesting. The New York State budget does amazing things. It fully funded the MTA's 25 to 29 capital program. And the fact that the federal administration decided that Amtrak will be in charge of the redoing of Penn Station rather than all the users, MTA, New Jersey Transit, and Amtrak, means that the governor has put the $1.2 billion she was holding for that purpose and put it back into the MTA's capital program. So the capital program includes the construction of the IBX, the Interborough Express, from Bay Ridge up through all of Brooklyn and much of Queens to Jackson Heights. That will really reduce traffic time from Brooklyn to like LaGuardia Airport. It's going to be an amazing game changer. It connects 19 subway lines, and it will connect Brooklyn College and Middle Village and Jackson Heights area to the middle of Brooklyn and Borough Park and Bay Ridge. I mean, it's going to be an incredible game changer. It'll be New York's first light rail too. Did you have a question?
I was just gonna ask if Andy Byford was gonna come back and be involved in anything related to Amtrak.
Given
We hope.
given the polls for the mayoral election, I'm not guessing that Andy Byford will be back.
I figured, but
Yeah.
I figured I'd ask.
This budget rehabilitates the structure holding Grand Central down from Park Avenue, which Chase has their headquarters above and which are very concerned about. It is in deep bad shape, and work has begun already on reinforcing the structure, holding up Grand Central and a lot of buildings along Park Avenue. So that's really important. Thousands of new subway and rail commuter cars are in this budget. More CBTC on many other subway lines, which will make much faster and more frequent subway service safer. They're upgraded to maintenance facilities. Some of our shops and yards are in really pitiful shape. They're from, you don't want to know how old they are. Those are going to be upgraded. Electrical power, some of our substations, you may have heard about the one that collapsed around State Street in Brooklyn, and people had to be escorted out of a train between stations. That is going to be rehabilitated. A lot of electrical substations, deficient bridges and tunnels, the new Penn access line along Amtrak's route, and the Metro North New Haven line is going to utilize it to go over the Hellgate Bridge and the Penn Station. They had to replace like 4 bridges in the Bronx alone with little rivers that they were just disintegrating. Amtrak didn't do anything, so Metro North is doing it. It will mean accessibility at 65 more subway stations, which is major. They're doing packages of subway stations now, and they're doing it faster and cheaper. So that's great news. Many more safety enhancements, platform barriers to stop people from falling or being pushed, things like that. Modern fare gates at more than 150 stations. That's not nearly enough considering we have 472 stations, but fare evasion has gotten way out of hand, and this will help that situation. More zero emission buses, many more electric buses are coming to get rid of some of even the dual electric diesel buses. Increased resiliency, now that you've heard about the A train coming back, the Metro North Hudson line has been really devastated by Superstorm Sandy, between hillsides and water rushing up on the tracks. That is going to be worked on, and many other great things in the capital budget. So right now it's good news. We will see what the federal administration has in store for us now as we are continuing congestion pricing, which is bringing in a little more than was hoped for even. And people who told me that they were dead against it now saying, you know what, I'm a convert. That $9, I'm getting much more quickly where I wanted to go, and that time is worth money to me. So glad to hear that.
Also, pedestrian injuries are down 13%.
Absolutely.
in the CBD.
Absolutely.
And New Jersey
Noise
Transit.
complaints.
And express buses are making so much better time that they're doing away with the schedules because they had to hold them at stops because they got to those stops so
Going
much
too
earlier.
fast, Yeah.
Yeah, so they're gonna change those.
Yeah.
Hey, Andrew,
Yeah, Doug.
you mentioned the camera enforcement on the bus lanes that are taking pictures of license plates. I take the SBS buses, the crosstown 86, 57 all the time, and it is unbelievable to me that they just line up and are parked all along 57th Street. And what I just wonder is, are they enforcing it? Are they taking pictures? And if you've got like 10 cars that are all lined up on 57th and the bus is behind one of them, how do they get the pictures of all the other 9 cars when their plates are all together? I'm just, you know what I'm saying?
I'm not totally sure that the 57th Street lines have the ACE cameras yet. but the 34th Street ones do, and you won't see that on 34th Street for sure. And some of our crosstowns, you won't see that now, because the ACE cameras are now on some of our crosstowns.
And are they
LP.
planned for the other
Oh, yeah, they're
crosstowns?
planned for lots, they're planned for all the routes, basically.
Got it. Thanks.
Any other questions for Andrew?
Just good news tonight.
Good news, Andrew.
New Jersey Transit strike is over.
Yeah, that's great news.
Oh,
Yeah.
Maybe New Jersey will actually put some important money into that very important resource they have, and because they keep raising the rates on the Turnpike and the Garden State Parkway, but they don't dedicate a piece of that to New Jersey Transit.
Is there any, I'm wondering if there's any, like to measure the economic impact of if they had continued to strike on Penn Station, like on the.
Oh, let me
small
just tell you
businesses and
one
stuff?
other thing, since you mentioned economic impact.
I know, we're gonna try to wrap up by 9 though.
Oh, this is gonna be much less than a minute. We recently had a rail users network meeting, of which I'm a vice chair also. It's a nationwide advocacy organization, and we had speakers from the MTA, from the MBTA in Boston, SEPTA in Philly, CTA in Chicago, and a San Francisco part of a light rail line in the San Francisco and Oakland area. They are all facing fiscal cliffs because their states haven't stepped up and realized that this is an economic engine that fuels those cities, which is the economic engine of those states. They're looking at massive fare increases or massive service cuts. In the case of SEPTA in Philly, 5 commuter rail lines may be totally shut down. Several trolley lines may be shut down, and subway service may be diminished. It's unbelievable. They have to come to their senses and realize these are economic engines that fuel these regions.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, yeah, well, I'm so devastated, but yeah, people have to wake up.
We are in much
Realize.
better shape because
Yeah,
we
we are in
realize
better
that
shape.
now.
New business.
One thing. Laura, just as a little appetizer for what's to come next month, Laura Sachs, if those of you don't remember, she was here at the end of last year.
Yes.
Oh, she brought coffee then. This is not on
This
the
is
agenda
not,
for
this is,
tonight.
this
will
is
be
just
next-
an appetizer and I have hard copies.
So
Nothing.
she's coming next month.
I
to,
sent an email with this document and I can put it off till like June
Next
is
month,
busy.
Laura's gonna make,
What's the subject matter?
it's the 72nd Street corridor.
No,
No,
this is
it's not.
actually.
This is the pedestrianization.
Yeah,
of
I'm not.
70.
Oh, I'm
69th.
sorry, that's right, I'm so sorry,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry.
This
That's
is the
right.
pedestrianization,
of-
yeah.
Pedestrian
Of
plaza
what?
between
Of 60.
69th and
Broadway.
71st.
If you
Oh.
remember,
Walkway
Yeah.
and Broadway,
if any of you remember at the end of, it was the end of last year,
Yeah.
when,
last year.
yeah,
yes,
last
yes,
year,
yes.
not,
Last month.
yeah, I think I had just.
All pedestrian.
So there was a very well done presentation that Laura came to us with just
Yeah.
There were
briefly
some
to
questions
discuss.
about bus service
Right.
along here.
Yeah.
So we've devoted, again, this is part of the reason we had shifting, this was going to be on the agenda for May.
Yes.
We
Bus
moved that
sanitation
item
and
so that we could
deliveries.
accommodate these other items that were urgently. And so you graciously agreed to come and present in June instead. So this will be the first item and probably the most prominent one to be discussed in June.
What street again, just to be clear?
70th to 72nd.
70.
It's between 69th and 70th.
69th,
It begins and goes up just a little north of
On the
71.
east side of Broadway.
So Laura, did you
Yep.
say you sent, this?
I sent,
presentation?
it's a 2-page presentation.
Yeah.
The first page is an overview showing some photos,
You gotta take a hell
because not everybody, you know.
Okay, we'll just make sure.
And I will send it again. It's just a 2-page presentation. I took into account the comments from last year's
Right.
presentation.
For that
So we
three
will talk
blocks.
about it.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Laura,
Laura.
thank
three
you for
blocks
sitting
only.
here this whole
Yeah.
time.
This is
Yeah,
so
well,
much
that's
fun.
Oh, come on.
I mean, you can ask that question for sure.
Here.
Although, believe me, I will.
Are you doing this next month or when are you doing it?
Whenever you have the time.
Oh,
Okay.
okay, I'll go find it.
Yeah, yeah.
All right.
Right.
Motion
Do you
to
have a
adjourn?
proposal of the date for
We-
this or not yet?
I'm sorry?
Do you have a proposed date for this presentation?
This is coming in June.
June
So
10th.
again, it was on the May agenda.
Okay.
Everyone can go and drive and see what our agenda items are. This was on the May agenda. We spoke with Laura when these other items
can I
came
see
urgently
it?
forward and we agreed. She had graciously agreed to move
Yeah,
it
and
to June.
take a
So
copy.
it'll be June 10th, which is our
Yeah.
next meeting.
Meeting adjourned?
Motion to adjourn?
Thanks.
So moved.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Bye, everybody.
everybody.
Greetings from Nevada.